All right, folks, welcome back into another edition of the High School Huddle, all your best Section 5 action. Recap for you in one convenient spot. I'm AJ Feldman. With me always is Carl Jones. Carl, we're less than a month away from the sectional playoffs. I'm starting to see on all these websites, they're releasing their schedules, their brackets, everything. Everybody's making a late season push. We're getting into crunch time here.
Oh yeah. Definitely seeing some teams start to separate, but also seeing some teams with some shocking upsets. Trying to make some late pushes down the stretch here. It's that fun time of year where the cream rises to the top and all the exciting ball starts to begin.
Yeah, so let's get right into it. Speaking of the cream rising to the top, last Saturday we got to get a little bit out of our comfort zone as well. Carl headed out to the Section 5 Division 1 dual meet wrestling championships. They do the dual meets first, and they'll get to the individual stuff later on in the winter. But that was some exciting action you got your hands on Saturday, wasn't it, Carl?
Oh yeah, and being from Ohio, I'm kind of like I'm familiar with wrestling, so it wasn't like any shock whatsoever. But it was still great competition. Obviously, I get there and it's 13-0 Fairport, and I'm like, oh. I'm not really too familiar with the lineups of either particular team, so I don't know how this one's going to go. And then it gets up to 19 for Fairport. I'm like, oh, all right, I don't know how this is going to end up. And then obviously Pittsburgh starts storming back, making it close. And then at one point it was 26-20 with one wrestler left. I believe I think the 110 wrestler was left, and Pittsburgh was down obviously, and he pins this guy. So we go to a 26-26 tie, and based off criteria, Fairport gets the win, and they advance to the state tournament as a team. So it was electric to seeing the kids in a different sport, obviously, compete and show their passion in a high stakes moment like that. But man, it was definitely cool to see that up close.
Yeah, and like you were telling me after the fact, when that tie happened, everyone was kind of like looking around, like, who's got this?
Oh, facts, yeah, and I'm. To be quite honest with you, I wish I would have kept it rolling, because I know that like criteria, you kind of know going in, like it's not like they make the criteria off the cuff, like it's guidelines, rules set in stone. Yet neither team like seemed like they had any idea what was gonna happen. Like Pittsburgh was celebrating that, like, oh hey, we tied this up, and I'm looking at Fairport and they're over there like in a state of shock. And like the guy who lost, or the kid who lost that last match, he was very visibly upset. So he clearly didn't know what the result was going to be either. So it was kind of like one of those things where it was like, oh man. And then 5 minutes later, the referees came out with a decision, and obviously Fairport was very ecstatic that was the result.
Yeah, it went down to the fourth tiebreaker. The third one, I believe, or the first three kind of deals with like unsportsmanlike conduct infractions, things of that nature, points taken away for penalties and things like that. So none of that happened. And then the fourth tiebreaker was matches won. So it was Fairport with one more match win than Pittsburgh. So that's how they got going. I believe it's this weekend is the state dual meet championships. And then the weekend after that is sectionals for individuals on February 5th. Then a week after that at SUNY Brockport, they'll do the state qualifier tournament, kind of the A1, A2 crossovers, things of that nature. That's February 12th at SUNY Brockport. So wrestling heating up as well. Always gets done a little bit before all the other ones. I'm sure those wrestlers are excited to get that done, get that, that win those sectional tournaments, state tournaments, and have a cheeseburger or two,
Yeah, I'm sure they're tired of cutting weight. I'm sure that they can't wait for it to all wind down a little bit.
Yeah, I know you've got some wrestling, but I just remember back in high school, certain days we just have some of our wrestlers wearing the sweatshirts, the baggy sweats, just running around before practice over and over again. Not exactly. I've always said that that's my least favorite sport that I would want to do, because I mean, like, there are a bunch of physical sports, football and things like that. But just wrestling isn't fun. Like to cut weight, like you've seen them at like lunch, just having like some carrots, like just not fun.
It's mentally exhausting. I remember various rides on the way to school, and my man, who's a wrestler himself, just very visibly upset at me. I'm eating my granola bar and he's just looking at me with the death stare. So big shout out and kudos to all those who participate in that sport because, man, it's a tough one.
Yeah, and speaking of getting out of our comfort zone, for somehow, some way this season, just the way the schedule's shaped up, during the Bill season, we're busier. I work a different schedule. I had not been to a single high school hockey game so far this season. It was Tuesday, got out to my first one, and I got treated to one of my favorite plays. Well, one of my favorite plays of any sport. Favorite saves I've seen ever. Danny Kucmerowski for Portside. He's the Portside goalie. Fairport, they get a breakaway, makes the big save to start off. Then he kind of gets a little bit out of position on the initial stop just because he's kind of got to go with the shooter to make the save. The rebound, juicy as all get out right in front, wide open net. Fairport player gets ready for a breakaway, Nathaniel Russo. But Kucmerowski, Danny Kumo comes diving over the net, makes the great save. We'll be running this on the video version right now so you can see it. One of the best saves I've seen at the high school level. Gives me a little bit of a flashback to the Ethan Breton's save of last year. Wasn't quite at that standard, especially with the time and circumstance. But just want to give a shout out to the goalie there, Portside. I think we've mentioned them a couple times before. They're off to a 9-4-1 start to the season. Taking a look at some of their recent results. Of course, the 3-1 win over Fairport that they just had on Tuesday. Take a tough loss to Schrader. Tied Brighton HFLER and then beat Pittsford recently. So I just wanted to give a shout out to a great save there. First game of the year. Treated to maybe one of the best plays we saw. You got that nice goal off of Schrader, but glad I picked that game to go to.
And for someone like myself who is still learning the sport, even I could recognize that play and know that was pretty nuts to see. So shout out to Danny Kumo for that play. We'll
move on to our segments here. Moving on to our teams of the week, the teams that impressed us the most. Carl, who do you have for your team of the week?
So for me, going with a team that's been rock solid all year, going with the Canandaigua Braves, the women, the basketball team, the 13-1 on the year. I mean, they had a 3-0 week, taking out Sutherland, Athena, and Schrader. I say at least two out of those three teams are really solid opponents, and those wins should not be diminished whatsoever. But what sticks out to me is how they play defense. They've only given up 40 plus points once on the year, and that was in a game that they won by 20. So that game was never really within doubt. Their only loss this year is to a team that I believe it might be one of the best teams in Section 5, regardless of classification in Waterloo. But I mean, 13-1 is nothing to sneeze at. A 3-0 week, have impressive wins over Victor, Brockport, Fairport, as we alluded to earlier in the season. They have solid wins up and down their resume. They're led by Maya Herman, averaging 15 points a game. They don't have another double-digit score, but that leads me to believe that they're that good on the defensive end of the floor where they don't need to play in the 50s and 60s every single game to win. Those teams are annoying to play come sectional and playoff time just because every bucket counts. And if you can't get a bucket against a team, then it's really, really hard to win. Obviously, the name of the game is to put the ball in the cup, right? So Canandaigua, that's a team that's clearly has dominated all year. And I just want to give them some love and say that they're the team of the week for me.
Yeah, looking like they'll be the number 2 seed in the Class A bracket. They've got games coming up against Sutherland and Brockport to close out this season. But other than that, they might be smooth sailing into the sectional tournaments. I don't think they'll be able to catch Mendon. They each have one loss, but just based on section points, sectional average, things like that, I think it will be Mendon with the 1 seed. And Mendon and Canandaigua, they have not played this season. So, Mendon, we've talked at length about them on this show. It's going to be a tough test either way. But like you said, if they can play defense like they do, and, Mendon hasn't been unbeatable. Penfield knocked him off, and Canandaigua certainly has some nice wins on their resume. So who knows what the sectional tournament will dish out there.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of with all the classifications this year. And I mean, with the team that you're going to lose to next, man, it's really any given day with any of these teams and any of these games. So teams are going to start tuning things up, dialing back some of the rotations, and man, come sectional time, we'll see who comes out on top.
Yeah, and speaking of big upsets and wins over Pittsford Mendon, got to give a shout out to my team of the week, the easy choice. I saw the score and I was like, all right, I'm claiming this one. Carl, I've got this one. The Webster Thomas boys basketball team knocking off Pittsford Mendon, ending their 27-game winning streak dating back to last season. Mendon went undefeated last year. They kind of looked like they were going to this year. You know, I think we even said last year, we're like, man, I can't find a loss on Mendon's schedule. They found it. Webster Thomas with the 67-57 win. It was a fourth quarter surge that really pushed it ahead for the Titans. Leading the way for Thomas, Sean Mason, 23 points. Jackson Kulik, 20 points. Andrew Quinn, 13 points. And I had seen them earlier in the season. I saw them take on Victor, and it was kind of the opposite story. It was Victor pulling ahead in the fourth quarter. Thomas really couldn't find a bucket late. But other than that, you know, Thomas had been really putting out some nice results, but nothing, you know, super noteworthy to get our attention. You know, they had a tough loss to an Irondequoit team, 50-46 right after Victor. So they started off 1-2, but since then their only losses to New Hartford, a non-Section 5 team. They've got some wins over, you know, a feisty Brighton squad. Penfield has a decent team. You know, Churchville Charlie has some players. They took care of them handedly, but we never really got a chance to see them against one of those upper echelon teams until yesterday. And boy, did they impress. You know, we've both seen Mendon multiple times, and to get a result like that, man, that can get your attention for sure.
Oh, 100%. And like I don't want to like glance over this point. When you told me that game, it wasn't over yet, but they were up by, like, I want to say 8 with 2 minutes to go. I was like, wait, huh? Like, I was preoccupied with something else at the moment, so I wasn't too locked in. But I'm like, yeah, AJ clearly sent the wrong text, worded it wrong, or something. And then I'm locked in. I see read it coherently this time. I'm like, oh no, he really said Thomas knocked off or is about to knock off Mendon. And I'm like, wow. As we alluded to ad nauseum on this podcast, Mendon is the real deal. I mean, clearly they are, but Thomas, they didn't care. And I think that was really like scary for sectional time and coming down the stretch. Like you said, I mean, they had an opportunity to make their mark and let people know that they're serious, and they let it be known. So you gotta give kudos and big ups to that, because they didn't care about the name of the jersey. They didn't care about anything that happened previously in the year. They just cared about what's going to happen today or that night between those black lines. And that's nothing but respect for that, because that a lot of the times you lose the game before you even go on the court. And Thomas clearly was like, Mendon, Cavaliers, next Warriors, don't care. We out there, we going to compete. So big shout out to them for that.
Yeah, and the other impressive thing about of that game was that was a road game. That wasn't even at home, you know, in front of your fans. You know, you get a team like Mendon coming in, you know, you're gonna get the overrated, you know, stuff like that, hyping you up a little bit. I was watching the stream at the end. Their JV basketball team cheering them on, but that was just about it. You know, they've got you know, leading the way for them, like we mentioned before, Jackson Kulik. He's a really talented player. He's going to Damon. A team with a pretty good D2 pedigree of getting some of the top talents in our area going there. You know, he's a 6'6" forward. He's got some nifty moves. He's got some great post game, got some good spin moves. And that can really, you know, a lot of teams don't really feature that big, skilled, large scoring threat where it can throw some teams for a loop. Sean Mason, a 6-foot guard, just a junior, but he, a captain, so a leader on that team. Eli Adams, forward, 6'1" captain. We've seen him do things, on the football field, of course. So it's a quality roster. It's got some depth that, every time you see one of these games, it's Mason, it's Kulik, it's Quinn, it's Thomas, it's Adams. They're all putting up 10 to 15 to 20 points. Nobody really leading the way, significantly. And that A1 bracket, just looking at it now with a loss by Mendon, you got Mendon at the top. You got Irondequoit, who we're going to talk about later as well. You got Webster, Schrader, Brighton, Thomas. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You got 6 teams, your top 6 teams in the class, all with 3 or less losses on the season. So It's going to be really interesting to see how that shakes out. It's going to be really interesting to see who gets that number 2 spot, that number 3 spot, because, even though Men's got a loss, you're going to want to avoid them. You're going to want to make sure you wait and get them in the state the sectional finals. So that's going to be an interesting bracket to watch going down the stretch. Speaking of teams that might be making a little bit of a surge in the brackets, Carl, your under the radar team, your team that deserves some pub.
The team that deserves some pub from me, you look at the record and you're like, I don't see it. I don't. What's the hype? What are you talking about, CJ? But Greece Olympia, they're 8-6 on the year, but if you dive a little deeper into their record and their schedule, all 6 losses have come to a Class A opponent, and they're in Class B, which means that they're 8-0 against some Class A teams in their Class B teams as well. So that goes to show me that, one, they play a bunch of teams maybe above their classification a little bit, bigger schools, to get them ready for sectional time. And I don't want to misspeak here, but AJ might know if they've been in Class A other years. But if that's the case, then that really bodes well for them come sectional time. But I saw them play once, and it was up against Arcadia. And it's kind of funny that this is my under the radar team. I saw them play for a roundup, and I assumed that they had lost to Arcadia. So I had put the record in a certain way, and AJ corrects me like about 30 minutes before showtime. It goes, "Yo, Olympia won that game. Fix that." I'm like, "What?" Like, oh, they did, huh? But in that quarter, I did see, though, what I was impressed with was how athletic they were. And we showed one of the lights where one of the kids, Anthony Stark, a beautiful block off the glass, sent it out the house. I love that. They're a very athletic team. And if you look at Class B, there's not really any team that is popping out and showing that they're a dominant force. North Star has a great record. So does Leroy and Dansville. But I don't think those teams are unbeatable by any means.
No, definitely not.
So it's like, I look at this Olympia team. They've proven that they can beat any Class B team on their resume or on their schedule. And come sectional time, I'm very interested to see if scheduling up a little bit and playing some of those Class A foes will help them out come sectional time.
Yeah, and Olympia, quite a turnaround for their program. Just 2 years ago in 2019, they had, in the 2019-20 season, they had a 2-20 record. So, quite the turnaround for them. I believe it might be Odyssey I'm thinking of, but I think in the somewhat recent past, they had some really nice runs. Yeah, even last year, 3-7. So Olympia, that's the thing about some of these, these B1 teams. It happens with Greece, especially. They're just used to playing, they play the other Greece schools, which are in Class A, they're so close to, they play some East Ridges and things like that. Like you said, they get the chance to play these tough competitions. And they do have, plenty of quality losses on, they only lost by 3 to East Ridge, which is, one of the top teams in A2. They had a tough, a 2-point loss to HFL. So they're close, knocking on the doorstep there. But yeah, I've seen North Star. Basically, if you can control Ryan Garwood, have a fighting chance against them. He can shoot the lights out. He's just about to set the Section 5 record for career 3-pointers. He's very close to that. He is actually he needs 8 more 3-pointers to break the record. So, I believe they're going back to Blue Cross Arena. They're not playing in home gyms, so you don't have to deal with playing in the North Star shoebox, as I like to call it, based on the size of that gym. So it can be a little difficult to play there. But yeah, a great call for a team that might be coming up on the rise there, Carl.
Yeah, and I think you hit it on the nail with the East Ridge loss, was really kind of made me look a little bit like, we only lost to a very, very talented team in East Ridge by 3. So it's clearly something they got over there.
And now taking a look at my under the radar team, my team that deserves a little bit of pub, the Dundee Bradford Brave Scots. I was able to catch them last night in a game against HAC girls. This is the girls basketball team. Able to catch them in a battle of 2 10-1 teams. Some good Finger Lakes West action, and Dundee Bradford really just took it to them. This is the second time they've played this season. HAC came out on the losing end both of those times. Their only 2 losses of the year for HAC. Yesterday, it was Dundee Bradford getting the 48-24 win. Dundee Bradford has really played some strong defense this season. Kind of what you alluded to before with the Canandaigua girls. Dundee Bradford, they barely allow their opponents to get to 40 some nights. They've got some good quality players in that game for Dundee Bradford. Haley Knapp with 15 points, 17 rebounds. Michaela Schaffner, 8 points, 12 rebounds. And that's really what stands out to them is their low post play. You get a team that can pass the ball well, they can move it around the zone, and you can get some offensive rebounds. You can make your life a lot easier for yourself, especially against some of these smaller schools, where you have a couple larger players down low, taller players down low. That can be a tough thing to handle. Their only loss so far this season for Dundee Bradford was to Homer out of the Cortland area. They had a tough loss there. But they are undefeated in Section 5 play so far this season, and they're going to be one of the contenders in the class. I believe they're in C2. So you've got East Rochester up in C1, Dundee Bradford in C2. Excuse me, that's not C2. Let me make sure I get my statistics correct. Dundee Bradford is in C3. They're the top dogs in C3. Right behind them, York, Lyndonville, and Byron Burgeon, each with 2, 3, and 4 losses respectively. So Dundee Bradford, 11-1 on the season. Another convincing win last night over HAC.
Shout out to Dundee Bradford, because when AJ told me about this, I'm still new to the area, and AJ told me about this game, told me about the game. I'm like, had never heard of this school before, but clearly they're doing their thing this year. So shout out to them. Y'all handle y'all business and go as far as you guys can take it.
Yeah, and York and Lyndonville, they will not play them in the regular season. Neither will they play Byron Burgeon. So kind of that C3 bracket's going to be a little bit of an unknown, because those top 4 teams have not played each other so far this season. But another thing a school to keep an eye on. And in that HAC game, HAC was really held back by the fact that their point guard was dealt with 4 fouls in the first half. She got into foul trouble, and she was really their main ball handler. Anna Thomas. They just had a different life when she was in. They finally put her in the fourth quarter just to see if they could, hold off with that. But and the other thing with Dundee Bradford, the minute she came back in, Anna Thomas, she's a little firecracker. She'll sprint around the court. She kind of think of how Russell Westbrook plays the sport. That gives you a little bit of idea of the pace that she plays with. The first time she got the ball, Dundee Bradford was pressing the whole game. They had a player immediately try and set a charge on her to get that 5th foul. So a little bit of basketball tells us that she ended up getting the blocking foul, but they knew, we can set this charge. We can let her run over us, get her out of the game, and that's good night. So some nice basketball IQ for Dundee Bradford as well.
I've never heard of that strategy before, but man, I'm gonna start yelling through the TV for that one right there when I see the opposing team start playing in foul trouble for sure.
Exactly. We've got some great games coming up this week on Round Ball Roundup. A big Friday slate. We'll be able to get to a lot of them. Carl, which one do you have your eye on in particular?
I feel like this team is always one of the best games of the night for us. Penfield, they're taking on Fairport tomorrow in Class AA girls matchup. It's round 2. The first matchup, Fairport kind of took it to them, 66-49. Both teams have had their ups and downs in terms of shocking losses. But, I mean, hey, the star power that's going to be on that floor is going to be, as Stephen A would say, box office to see, Ella Mae Bond, Bella Pucci, Nevaeh Buntley, and then the plethora of Penfield stars with Ava Elliott and so forth and whatnot. Shout out to Grace Alexander also for the game-tying 3. That was clutch to see. But, that's going to be a great game to watch. And what's interesting about that game is Class AA for girls is kind of the top 5 is 6, I guess you can say. You really don't know it's any given night because Hilton just took down Penfield. So Hilton's they're trying to make their name known.
Hilton took down Penfield? I did not see that.
Yes, they took them down. So it's so you clearly don't know. So it's any given night. So I mean, hey, you obviously Mercy's up there. They can hoop with the best of them with Libby McDonough. So, I mean, Class AA is a sight to see. It's going to be fun to watch, and this is just one of the daily. This is just another Class AA matchup.
Wow.
It's going to be great to watch.
Yeah, this is me just looking at the Hilton Penfield box score. Wow, that is an impressive win for Hilton. Wow, let's give some flowers to Hilton here. You could have easily featured them in our segment. Yeah, then just looking at that Penfield Hilton box score, Grace Alexander played, Eliza Ficlaris played, Ava Elliott played, Kennedy Cohn played. So these were the top dogs for Penfield. This wasn't, any sickness, any, problem with the grades, anything like that. This was just Hilton's best beating Penfield's best. Yeah, Ella Clark, 24 points. Mallory Heisey, 20 points. So, yeah, AA is up in the air, because I think you mentioned before, surprising losses. But anytime these teams played, who really knows what's going to happen? And I just really wish that Bishop Kearney played some more Section 5 games. They're obviously, they built themselves a tough schedule to deal up for, sectionals and states and beyond. But man, I really wish we could get some, Kearney Penfield, Kearney Mendon, Kearney Fairport action, kind of to see where they actually rank against these Section 5 teams.
Oh yeah, 100%. We tried to get them one game, but we unfortunately weren't able to go. But man, 1 through 6, and hey, for all I know, it might be 7 or 8 this year, the way this Class AA is shaking out. So can't wait to see Penfield and Fairport round 2 tomorrow night.
Yeah, and Fairport, last year we had our eyes on the Fairport Victor game. Fairport just blew them out of the water in that first quarter. It was like 23-4 or something like that. Victor ended up making it just a 14-point game at the end. But yeah, that AA class is sure something. And then for my game of the week, also Friday night as well, going over to boys basketball. We alluded to it earlier. Webster Thomas trying to see what they can do for a repeat. They've got Irondequoit at Irondequoit. Eagles versus Titans. That'll be another great game. These two teams met earlier in the season in Webster. It was a 50-46 win for Irondequoit. I've actually not seen Irondequoit yet this season, so I'm looking forward to maybe getting out to that game myself. The Eagles are, we haven't really talked about them too much just because I think the schedule hasn't worked out, where actually, they've played not an easy schedule, but not some of the elite dogs. They've beaten Spencerport, Rush Henrietta, Gates Chili, Churchville Chili, nothing that really stands out. They got a decent win, a big win over a quality Athena team. But this Webster Thomas game, this is going to be another big prove-it game for them as well to see where they rank up as well. I'm going to be interesting to see how it shakes out this Friday night. We mentioned all the guys for Thomas before already. Irondequoit, they've got, Xavier Gizendander, Evan Leonardo, Ryan Heath, just a lot of quality players there as well. So that's going to be a nice matchup to watch tomorrow night.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to see Irondequoit twice over the Christmas break area, and 2 players, Ryan Heath and Xavier Gizendander. Those 2 kids are a walking 20 every night. So it'll be interesting to see how Webster Thomas can match up with them. That's going to be a great game. So for all those in Section 5, be on the lookout for that one, because that's going to be box office as well. Shout out to Stephen A.
Yeah, Jackson Kulik, he's going to have 3, just looking at the roster, he's going to have 3 inches on anybody that Irondequoit throws at him. So that's going to be obviously the matchup to watch down low, and seeing how Irondequoit's wings and guards deal with Thomas out there. So we've got an exciting slate of games for you tomorrow. We've got an exciting couple of weeks coming up leading up to the sectional playoffs. We'll be with you every step of the way. Who knows? Maybe we'll get to bring in some guests, things like that. I'm sure, we're a couple weeks away from bringing Mary Margaret Johnson back on the show. So we'll be looking forward to that as well. We appreciate the love. We're anybody who's watching us, feel free to give us a shout out. Let us know you're watching. Let us know what you're seeing. Maybe we can feature it on the show. And as always, you can watch it on rochesterfirst.com. You can listen on Spotify as well. Well, for Carl Jones, I'm AJ Fellman. It is time to break the huddle. We will be back with you next week for more Section 5 action. Until then, see you later.